Hello, it's Phillip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers in London. This morning I'm looking at a book from Routledge. It's part of their series of main textbooks. This one is on marine insurance law. It's been written by Dr. Ozlem Gurses, if I've pronounced his name correctly. The book is from Routledge, Taylor and Francis group. It's also an ebook. My wife Elizabeth and I had a look at this book and we thought, well, what title should we give our review? We've given it this title: An Expert Introduction with Clear Explanations Throughout, giving a comprehensive and accessible overview to marine insurance law. And that's what you get. Now, before I do the review itself, let's look at the book. It's a paperback. It's not very heavy. There's the front, the spine, a little bit of stuff on the back. You see the Routledge sign up the top. Mentions a little bit about the ebook side of it, if that's what you want. It's a digital endeavour. There is the index at the back there. You've got quite a lot of footnoting. It's a nice text to read, by the way. That's one thing I did like about it. There are no paragraph numbers there at all. It's just subheads all the way through. If we go to the front, there's a statement from the good doctor about what he's aiming to do with this book. It is aimed at graduates and undergraduates. There's the front bit there. Then you can see there are actually 15 chapters in total, looking in quite a substantial detail. I think for most people, marine insurance law is something for postgraduates, but certainly it does now come into some syllabuses in some of the universities. So it's a very interesting area of law. And of course, Dr. Gurses is actually at Southampton University, which of course is a leader in this particular area. There are the contents pages. And again, you see the 15 chapters. Then there's the index at the back. Then you've got tables of cases, of course, and you've got tables of statutes. The usual suspects are here. Then there's a very interesting preface. Do have a look at it. Can I just say, I mentioned it in the review, that the Insurance Act, in fact it was the Insurance Bill 2014, that is now an Act of Parliament since this book was produced. So I'll comment on that again in a minute. There's chapter 1. What you do have is a table of contents there, which is very useful to find things quite quickly. Then you can see he starts off, the word insurance, firmly called assurance, is of Italian origin, and the word policy derives from polizza, as promise or undertaking. Then you have a nice little footnote telling you where he's got it from. So you see all the way through, it flows nicely, and you've got some very interesting points coming out. What you do have in addition is there's the legislation, the main legislation itself. Then you have a whole range of different chapters. Can I point out something about further reading? The further reading is where you will find the bibliography, and there aren't websites as such. These are just actually books that you can find further information from. I'm very impressed with this book. It's got a great deal of content. It's obviously written very much for people with at least some knowledge of marine insurance. It's an important area. It's certainly featured in a number of LLM courses, and this book is ideally suited to that, to give you the basic understanding before you then look at the sort of problems which you would get both academically and as practitioners. This is what we say about the book anyway. As with all Routledge textbooks, this particular title is probably the best on the market as an introduction to the way in which marine insurance law operates in England and Wales, and that's for those new to this developing and quite complex area of substantive law. And Dr. Ozlem Gurses adopts a clear and simple approach in our view throughout, with a legal vocabulary which is carefully measured in the book. One of the main reasons why we consider the Routledge series of legal textbooks to be so outstanding in terms of value, both for cost and content, is the way in which their authors, who are all legal experts, explain substantive legal issues in such a readable fashion, and marine insurance law is no exception. For both tutors and students at undergraduate and postgraduate level, a decision on which textbook or revision book to use is always going to be difficult, especially with the wide variety of titles on the market. But it's clear to us from the feedback we get from students that the Routledge texts tend to lead the field. Many of their titles also have excellent links for further reading at the end of each chapter, which is a splendid additional tool for all levels of academic research. There is no companion website with this, but there are, of course, with a lot of the books that they're now producing. We'd also say that the formats used by Routledge for their books are very much of a mainstream formula for legal texts today, which eases the student into the methods of legal reasoning for those just beginning their legal studies and for all undergraduates. They certainly helped us with our preparation in the past, so do ensure that you look very carefully at all the titles they have on offer. Gurses uses excellent detail with the footnotes to make the subject come alive, and we found the text very easy to read and understand. And in his preface, the author explains how English marine insurance law goes way back to the 15th century, and he pays tribute to Lord Mansfield's contribution during the 18th century, going on to say that the 2,000 or so cases decided between the middle of the 18th and the end of the 19th century were codified by the Marine Insurance Act 1906. That act, of course, was not definitive, but it does illustrate the way in which many of our laws today are gradually now being codified over the decades by the use of consolidated legislation. Of course, the classic one now is the Companies Act. And I'm very grateful to have that because it does assist us in knowing what the law is and where to find it. Gurses also describes the passage of the Insurance Bill 2014, which I've mentioned. Now, he covers that in the preface, but that has now become the Insurance Act 2015, and it received the royal assent on the 12th of February 2015, and that was, of course, after the book was published. So that gives you a little bit of up-to-date information. The Act reforms the duty of good faith in business insurance warranties and fraudulent claims, amongst other changes, which are currently being implemented as the present legislation comes in. And obviously we will get cases coming out of this in due course, so do keep up to date with any further developments with the new Parliament from May 2015, recording this just before the general election in the spring of 2015. Let me conclude by saying that all the main key areas of marine legal insurance are set out clearly in each of the 15 chapters, with the most useful short chapter contents list at the beginning of each chapter, making the book of particular help, we think, to those new to the subject. The title remains an ideal first introduction to marine insurance law for undergraduates and for anybody interested in the growing area of this particular subject matter for the 21st century. And Southampton University ought to be congratulated for leading on this. In fact, Dr. Gurses is Associate Professor in Maritime Law at Southampton University. And as I say, this book is in ebook as well. There it is again. There's the back of it. And just opening it up anywhere. Remedies, here we go. This is about strict compliance and warranties, for instance. You get a general idea. A lot of footnoting, which I think is, again, helpful. And then, of course, again, you've got the chapter contents, which I mentioned there. And you do, if I just go back, a little bit of further reading on each chapter too. Well, thank you very much to Routledge and to Dr. Gurses. This is a first-class book. Good primer, I think, for you if you're doing marine insurance law. It's an interesting area, and I think quite a large number of firms of solicitors certainly are involved in this area of law, shipping being a very major industry even now internationally. So thank you to all concerned. Bye-bye.